With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Let's Talk About Sex, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I'm your host, Estela Rodriguez-Jebril, licensed clinical therapist and the Muslim sex coach. We are live here on Sky Channel 752 and across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I want to invite all of you listening to join us in and be a part of this discussion tonight and get the advice that you want, that you're looking for, by simply calling in through into the studio on 01-924-231-083. And remember that standard network rates do apply, so make sure that you have the bill payer's permission before calling in. And you can also share your thoughts, ask questions, give your comments through WhatsApp by messaging us at 07950-797-017. Today's topic is about sexless marriages. What are the causes and the consequences of sexless marriages? There are different definitions of a sexless marriage. Now, some experts say that a sexless marriage is when spouses have not been intimate within 6 to 12 months during that time period. Other experts say that it's having less than 10 sex 10 times a year. And whatever the definition, one thing is clear, and that is that a sexless marriage can cause problems when one or both spouses are dissatisfied with the frequency of sexual relations. Now, what are some of the common reasons, and is it common? So first, how common is a sexless marriage? Studies show at least 15% of married couples are in a sexless marriage. And tonight, we'll look at and discuss the dynamics of a sexless marriage, and we're going to examine how a sexless marriage can take a toll on you. Now, what are the causes and the consequences that result from a sexless marriage? Now, there are many reasons why marriages become sexless. Sometimes couples have, very little sex from the beginning of the marriage, or sometimes the couple gets into a habit of just not having sex on a regular basis. Now, there are a variety of different life events that happen throughout a marriage that affect the intimacy and affect the sex that is taking place in a marriage. Some are when there's a new baby. The new baby has come, the family has started. A woman goes through so many changes during the pregnancy and after delivery. So the dynamics of the communication are going to change after a child is born. So the effort and the work in creating that intimacy and the passion in the marriage, it needs to be worked on. And if both aren't working on it together, then one or the other will not have their needs met. Now, a lot of issues arise that are just connected to raising the children, the difference in raising the children, and what are the boundaries and the limits that are created within that marriage. Many marriages bring the baby into the bed. And then when the children come in, then the attention starts going to the children. It's so important to pay attention to the life events that are affecting your marriage. Another aspect of life that can affect your marriage and the sex frequency in your marriage is a demanding job. a demanding job with incompatible work schedules if both partners work, excessive stress from the job. You want to be able to take note of these differences and these changes that are happening in your marriage. Another situation that can arise after being married for a few years, or if you're new to marriage and you're older, a midlife crisis. During the different stages of our life, we experience, different changes in our emotional state, in our personal state, in our physical state. And a midlife crisis is a stage that can affect a marriage. One partner in the marriage may not be satisfied with what they've achieved in their life. Another area that is really important to pay attention to that can really affect the sex in your marriage is an addiction to pornography, an interest in pornography. Now, this topic is one that needs a whole show just to discuss what are the causes, what are the symptoms of, that come about with pornography. How do they affect you as an individual? How do they affect the marriage? They can be really, really deep and really, really dark. And it can happen to women as well as men. So we need a whole show to discuss this one. You also want to know that there can be changes in the physical attractiveness of you, your partner, and this is going to affect the interest. This is why it's so important to take care of yourself. Self-care is talked about so much because it is important, not so that you can be at a superficial, shallow level with your attractiveness, with your beauty, but so that you can take care of yourself. And if you feel good about yourself, you're going to show up in your marriage with that energy that attracts your partner and will cultivate the intimacy that you want. Now, you also want to pay attention to how you navigate through arguments, how you hold on to resentment when one or the other partner gets angry often or doesn't know how to resolve disagreements, or there's a lot of fighting. This is definitely one of the situations that comes up for many, many couples at the beginning of a marriage, after years of being married, or during the different transitions that a marriage takes as children come into the marriage, as children leave the marriage, as children grow up and go on and start their own lives. And yes, couples do fall out of love with each other. And there are a variety of reasons when those couples start to distance themselves from each other and aren't in love with each other. Many times marriages start out with it being forced, or two people being convinced to commit to marriage because, the parents or the families want them to get married. It's so important to be able to explore why your marriage is a sexless marriage. If you're having sex less than 10 times a year, you want to be able to explore and understand what is happening in your communication, what is happening in the dynamics of your marriage. This is a common thing that's going on in many of our marriages right now. Another reason some marriages are sexless is because of a low sex drive or no sex drive. Sometimes one or both partners in the marriage have a low sex drive, or they may be asexual. And these are areas that really need support so that you don't fall into this dynamic where you're being accusatory of each other. And other times, one or the other partner may have experienced negative associations with sex. One partner or the other may have experienced sexual trauma. And they get this perception in their mind that sex is dirty, that sex is ugly, that sex is evil. And this is really something that needs to be addressed. And when you or your partner are experiencing an aversion to sex, an aversion to intimacy in your marriage because of past trauma, then you want to be able to address it. You want to be able to understand that there are also health issues that can play a role in causing a lower desire of having sex. Well, there are also physical issues that happen with disease, with illness, that reduce the ability and create a physical inability to participate. There are also some examples that create an inability to have an erection. Erectile dysfunction is connected to heart disease. There are also vaginal conditions that women may experience pain during intercourse. Now, can you fix a sexless marriage? Yes. If you're willing to do the work, you can fix a sexless marriage. You can work to improve your marriage. Being in a happy sexless marriage can be equally, if not more, frustrating than being in an unhappy relationship. If you or your spouse are passionately in love and are not prioritizing spending time together, then you need to understand the solution. We're going to be preparing to take a quick break. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, send them through WhatsApp or call the studio. We'll be back.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.
And welcome back to Let's Talk About Sex. And today we're talking about sexless marriages and what are the causes and what are the consequences of living in a sexless marriage. And we have a few questions that have come in. One of the questions that we keep getting often is, is oral sex allowed in Islam? Now, this is a question that you can definitely reach out to your alim, reach out to the alim here on British Muslim TV and get the scholarly response that you're looking for. I also want to invite you to just think about, the connection that you want with your spouse and explore and create an excitement that will keep you connected to each other. And if it involves oral sex, then just be precautious to make sure that you're not being pressured to do anything that you don't want to do. It's important to be able to verbalize and communicate your wants and your needs and your interests. We also have another question question that came in. Somebody is asking about a friend that's been in a marriage for over 10 years and that it's a marriage that's never had sex. A marriage that has never had sex has never been consummated. So you want to talk to your alim about this. This is a huge concern. If you are married and you've never had sex, then you haven't consummated your marriage. That's an issue. That's a problem. You need to reach out to your alim as soon as possible and have a deep conversation on what is happening with this marriage. What is the commitment that has been made, and what can be done to just improve it and make a better decision for both partners. Another question that has come in is that from day one, that there hasn't been any interest from the husband to the wife, and that in private that they just leave each other alone. Like, this is an enormous concern. It's when you are in a marriage where there is absolutely no sex, you're really creating this frustration and this anger and this resentment in the union. And this is something that I highly, highly suggest that you reach out to professional help and get the support that you need. There's another question that came in. Today is my first time being able to watch the live show. My thoughts and opinions and communication between two people is very important. Yes, communication is so important. And that is what creates a happy relationship, and especially in our marriages. So when, being in a happy, sexless marriage just isn't going to function. It isn't going to function. It's going to become really just a painful way to live as partners, as you fantasize for a relationship that is just not happening. If you and your spouse are in love because you care for each other, you have to prioritize spending time together and cultivating that kind of relationship that's going to allow you to connect in an intimate way. If you aren't connecting at the sexual level, whether you get along or not, it's important to get to the root of the problem in your sex life. There are 2 simple ways that you can start to take control of your marriage and your mental health. Because if you are in a marriage where you're not satisfied, your mental health is going to be impacted. Number 1, communication. Communication needs to improve. Number 2, you have to get help. Communication is the backbone of any strong marriage. Studies show that sexual communication is positively correlated with a relationship that is one that has a quality, environment in it when it comes to connecting with each other, and a satisfying sex life. Couples have to learn how to talk about what is bothering them and to grow and strengthen their relationship. Communication is what reduces frustration. Being able to express your feelings is what allows you to understand where the anger and the frustration is rooted. Communication is what reduces embarrassment when you're talking about vulnerable subjects like your sexual desires or your sexual inhibitions, as well as keeping you away from temptation to cheat. That is definitely something that will happen because it's a natural desire to want to connect with another human being. And this is why marriage is half of our religion, so that we can connect at an intimate level, so that we can connect at a passionate level. And without communication, you're not going to be able to strengthen your relationship, and you're not going to be able to grow your intimacy. Getting help is also vital. If you're not able to communicate and you're not able to express your feelings openly, and you're afraid that you're going to be ridiculed or you're not going to be understood, then getting help is vital. Not everyone is comfortable sharing the ins and outs of their sex life. No, nobody wants to sit in front of a stranger and share those intimate, vulnerable topics and situations from your marriage. But therapy is beneficial. Working with a professional is absolutely going to give you an outcome that is better than sitting in silence and weathering out the storm and thinking that things are just going to change on their own. We're getting some messages on WhatsApp. We're being thanked for the show, and I'm so glad that you're here listening. It really means so much when we are thanked for putting this topic out there, because I know it's not an easy topic for many. They had a last question about foreplay. What is the best way to do foreplay? The best way to step into foreplay with your partner is to communicate. It's to talk about what it is that you desire in them, what it is that you desire them to do for you, to pleasure you. Remember, your husband, your wife, they're your halal. This is when you can be the most vulnerable, the most transparent about your feelings. So the number one aspect of foreplay is communication. If you're not talking about what you want to do, how are you going to get that across? If your partner doesn't know what you want, how are they going to explore themselves? And then if you're shy about certain things without communication, how are you going to overcome that shyness with the most important person in your life? You want some examples of foreplay? Caress your spouse's face, touch their lips, touch the back of their neck, massage each other's arms, each other's bodies, each other's torsos and legs. Touch each other and communicate. Don't do this in silence. Communicate loving words. Ask for what you want. You want to be able to allow yourself permission to step into that vulnerable state that will allow you to create more meaning and more depth in your relationship. I hope that answers your question. Someone is saying, I have no sex drive. How do I fix this? Well, there are a variety of things that could be happening when you don't have a sex drive. There may be past trauma. There may be some physical things that are going on with your health. It's really important to be able to get professional help, to talk to a sex expert, a sex therapist, to go see your primary care physician and try to figure out if there's some kind of, hormonal issue that's going on. You got to do the work to research and to explore and understand what's going on with your health and with any past trauma that you've experienced. You have to be willing to explore that with a professional. There are always a variety of reasons why you are experiencing a low sex drive or no sex drive. Another question is, are you ever too old to fix your sex life? No, you are never too old to fix your sex life. There are many, many couples that are in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s that are working on cultivating an amazing relationship. But you have to be willing to do the work. Communication is key. Openly communicating with your spouse about any problems that you're having so that they can be vulnerable with you. Getting marital therapy, learn to understand each other and invest in spending quality time together. Even when the children arrive, even when the stressors are there, you want to be able to open up and be vulnerable. Vulnerably communicate your wants. Vulnerably communicate your needs. This is what's going to boost your physical and your emotional intimacy. Without communication and without having the confidence to ask for help, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck and you're going to stay in that place of resistance. This is a conversation that's going to continue every Friday. So if you have any other ideas or any other topics for any other shows or any questions or comments, send them through WhatsApp, call into the studio. Thank you all for watching this edition of Let's Talk About Sex, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com, hosted by me, Estela Rodriguez-Jebril, along with all of those here at British Muslim TV. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.